day.
Hello everyone, this is Mark again out at Whit's Barbecue, and I want you to try and picture this scene. It's really the birth of a tradition. Early morning, the sun's almost up, hickory wood being piled into the wood box. The little boy watching his father load the wood box, lighting the fire and smoke gradually rising, blanketing the whole area with smoke hovering just above tree height. The smell is overwhelming, and it's a beautiful sight, and it's one that I've experienced since I was a kid, where each morning for almost 44 years now, I or some member of my family have begun their day that same way. We still cook the old-fashioned way like that with real hickory wood to give our barbecue that trademark sensation. So I want you to remember that tradition that I'm talking to you about, how we begin every day with fire and smoke, and I want you to end your day by dropping by and taking home a pound of the best Southern hickory smoked barbecue in the nation. That's Whit's. There's one near you.
How would you like to try a sales generating tool for your business that is so good at locating qualified leads it's been called best of the breed? If your business thrives on selling to other businesses, then get ready for a toll-free number and a free trial offer that could literally revolutionize your sales. Hoover's, a D&B company, has developed a powerful tool to connect you to qualified buyers for your product or service that is fast and easy. No more wasting time getting leads manually. No more pre-configured lists of names that don't fit your business. Hoover's advanced targeting technology helps you reach the market that will be most receptive to your product or service. For a limited time, Hoover's would like to offer their radio listeners 50 free leads and a 24-hour trial.
Just call 800-239-0011. That's a free trial and 50 free leads. Call now. 800-239-0011. 800-239-0011. Again, 800-239-0011.
WKAC Monday weather.
Well, good morning, everyone. We are getting some rain today. Scattered showers occasional throughout the day today, even overnight tonight. A few showers tapering off as that front approaches and moves through. We will see improving weather for you Tuesday. Highs today only in the low to mid 70s, so not too bad, but there are more 70s right around the corner. In fact, Wednesday will be the nicest day of the week. Even with full sunshine, we will stay in the 70s Wednesday afternoon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis on WKAC.
And your weather's a service of Charter Communications. Get hooked today at charter.com. Details are also available at WKAC1080.com. Right now, cloudy, it's raining, and it's 73 as we return with the Dan Williams Show here on WKAC.
Thank you, Tim. We're back with Mark Davis, Communication Director there, Alabama Family Life Association, and Family Law Attorney Austin Burdick from Bessemer area, and Senator Paul Sanford, who's our state senator from the 7th District in Madison County. Mark, you mentioned a minute ago something about some more remarks about joint custody and social data that's available on these things.
Yes. I have some social science data that says that the current pattern and practices in the state of Alabama is harmful to children. And first I want to tell you that typically the judicial system will order what they call a standard visitation schedule, which is called an 80-day rule. Yeah. And so out of 19 years of a child's minority, under the 80-day rule, a child will only spend 4 years of those 19 years with one of their two fit parents. So we're stripping a child away from one of their parents. And social science data that's been compiled by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Alabama DHR basically says that children from one-parent homes account for 63% of youth suicides, 71% of youth of pregnant teenagers, 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 85% of children that exhibit behavioral disorders come from one-parent homes, 71% of high school dropouts, 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from one-parent homes, and then 85% of all youths in prison come from one-parent homes.
That is very disturbing facts there. Parents are responsible for the children. And in these cases, you're sort of removing some of that into the court. And this may be something I see now maybe why the people are sort of down on the legislature, Paul. There need to be something done, and we're not interested, I reckon, in more government control and everything, but we have a court system, and it comes under the law that made the legislature. So go ahead, Mark.
Well, we have laws on the books now in the state of Alabama that parents are supposed to create parenting plans at the time of a divorce filing or a custody filing with the courts. The problem is the judicial system is not honoring that mandate to law. In 1996, the federal government implemented the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act. And one of the provisions of that act is the federal government wants parents making decisions for their children, not the government. And so the federal government implemented several mandates, and one of those mandates was to have parents to create parenting plans. And like I said, there's a statute on the books now, but the attorneys are not honoring it, and the judges are not mandating that. And what a parenting plan would do is, let's say two parents file for divorce. Each parent creates a plan and says, this is what I want for my children. Then they give that to the judge, and the judge has got some kind of an idea of what those parents want that they think's in the best interest of their children. And right now you go into a courtroom and a judge just says, well, okay, y'all can't get along. I'm going to give parent A standard visitation 80 days a year, and the other parent is essentially removed from the child's life. Okay,
now I reckon this is a question to Paul in Austin. We have the court. The court's created by the law, which is passed by the state legislature at some point. That's what sets up, as far as I know, the law. But who is in authority? I know the people ultimately are the authority, but within our current state government, who is in authority over the court system? The legislature is not in the day-to-day authority, Paul, over the system. Who is? When we're talking about the fact that they're not going by the law.
Well, and that's a great question, and it leads to frustration when you find the answer.
Yeah.
From a management standpoint, the Supreme Court is in charge of all the courts. They're in charge of establishing a budget, submitting it to the legislature, and all those managerial duties.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in a local court and a decision is made that you don't like, that's not good, that doesn't follow the law, your only remedy at law is to file an appeal. And when you file an appeal, that becomes a lengthy and costly process in and of itself. Drafting appellate briefs is hard work. A lot of attorneys just won't do it. And the ones that will do it, they charge a good bit of money for it because it's hard work. Now, if you have a judge, let's say you have a judge and we start to see a pattern that this judge is just simply not following the law, and they've done this 6, 7, 10 times, and they get appealed over and over again. The Court of Appeals doesn't have any authority to come in and tell that judge, you know what, we're going to offer you early retirement because you have no idea what you're doing. They can't do that. The Supreme Court doesn't do that either. The only remedy that exists in Alabama for a situation like that, where you have a completely incompetent judge or a judge who refuses to follow the law, is to file a complaint with the Judicial Inquiry Commission. Now, that's only been done a few times in the state of Alabama, and the big reason for that is, in the state of Alabama, unlike I think any other state in the union, if you file a complaint with the Judicial Inquiry Commission, the first thing that happens is that the Judicial Inquiry Commission notifies that judge and tells them who has reported them. And then now you've got problems with reprisals. If you're an attorney who practices in that courtroom, you've got to deal with the fact that now that judge is going to be smacking you around for the next 6 years, because that's how long judges sit on the bench before they run for re-election. So from a practical standpoint, it's almost impossible to get rid of one of these judges who doesn't know the law and doesn't follow the law. The only way to do it is try and get them on re-election. But, you know, I think your listeners listening today, if you asked them if you asked them to name the circuit court judges here locally, they couldn't do it. And most of them, they don't vote all the way down the ticket. We've got to create an awareness of who's running for these judgeships, because a lot of times we're just voting because old so-and-so is running, and I've seen that name so-and-so so many times, I'm going to vote for him.
Well, in light of that, does that put a lot more responsibility on the legislature?
Let me jump in here, because I have some information here.
Yeah.
In the latest data that's available from the federal government for fiscal year 2008, and there was basically 1.6 million parents, children, and others subject to child custody orders in the state of Alabama.
Wait, say that again.
1.6 million
in Alabama.
In Alabama, that's parents, children, and others. We're talking about grandparents. That's subject to child custody.
25% of the population.
Yes, it's a fairly large number. But here's another interesting fact. I talked about that Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act from 1996. They are giving the state of Alabama grant money. And this grant money I'm talking about right now goes to the office, the administrative office of the courts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, does that office come under the Chief Justice?
Yes. AOC comes under the Chief Justice. Since 1996, the state of Alabama has taken between $100,000 and $200,000 a year in grant award funding to be used for various activities. And one of those activities is mediation, counseling, maybe supervised visitation. And the other one is the development of parenting plans. You remember earlier I told you we've got the law on the parenting plans. Fiscal year 2008, this is from the federal government data that I've done research on. There were only 677 parents and 695 children that was served. But here's the real kicker. Only 26 parenting plans were required to be developed. And so when we say who's under the authority to the judicial system, if the Chief Justice of the state of Alabama would issue a memo to all the state judges that says we are accepting federal funding to ensure that children are to have substantial relationship with both of their parents. As a matter of fact, implement these parenting plans that our legislator has enacted, then that doesn't cost a dime for that to be done. But nobody's doing it. I mean, it would just take a mandate or a memo that basically educating these judges to do this.
Now, we have a new Chief Justice. Chief Justice Roy Moore will be coming into office in January, I think.
Well, he's still got a Democratic challenger, but in this state, that sounds like a pretty done deal.
We can fairly say, I think, that Chief Justice Moore will, whoever it's going to be. Is there any possibility that the new Chief Justice will take the initiative to try to do something about this situation that Mark just talked about?
We can hope so.
Yeah.
The part of the problem that we're experiencing, who oversees the courts, is there's a definite separation of powers between the legislature and the judicial system. We've run into some instances where, because the legislature has given statutory approval for the court to make its own rules that it lives by, then we end up, when we try to do legislation that demands finding of facts and certain things like that, the Supreme Court has struck some of that down in the past, saying, no, you've given us the rulemaking power. We decide when that's done and when it's not done and how we enforce it inside the court system. So there's been some roadblocks that have been thrown up traditionally in the past when the legislature has tried to step in on behalf of the citizens of the state and demand that the court system go through certain procedures and processes in regards to cases. The court has then come back and said, no, we get to decide that. And so we end up with a little bit of butting of the heads.
Yeah.
So what we have to hope for is that we can get a Chief Justice that'll look through some of these policies and procedures that have been implemented, some of the statutory mandates that have been placed upon the court, and that they'll actually follow through with what's on the books of the state in the best interest of all citizens of Alabama.
Okay, do we have a break coming up? We got a break coming up. We'll be back in just a minute with the Alabama Family Rights Association.